I am divorced from my son's mother, and she took the easy way out of our financial arrangements. Essentially, I was left paying for certain expenses such as our son's private school and extracurricular activities, while she was responsible for their health insurance, medical bills, and nanny. She did not contribute much towards insurance, and our sons did not require medical care until now. Our son Pierre Tween has a tooth growing from the roof of his mouth that needs to be removed quickly. This is not a simple procedure as he will need to be put under anesthesia, and we have to go to a pediatric oral surgeon. After some searching, we found a highly recommended pediatric oral surgeon, and the cost will be $3,000. This amount is due to dental insurance not covering much and the expense of an anesthesiologist. Half of the cost had to be paid when the appointment was confirmed, and the other half on the day of the appointment. My ex asked if I would split the cost, to which I replied, no, the bill is her responsibility, not mine. This is what she wanted, right? She spent the last few years with minimal child care expenses and got used to it. She then mentioned that she does not have that kind of cash readily available, and it does not make sense to put it on a credit card with high interest rates. I told her to consider selling blood, but I do not care. I have budgeted my money and can cover the entire cost without it being a big deal. In the end, she had to take out a loan from her credit union to pay for the surgery. Our son was always going to have the surgery, and there was no delay. Am I the one at fault? No, I am not at fault for holding my ex to her side of the agreement. When I did not pick up the slack for her, she found a way to handle it herself. That is fine. However, we should have a discussion about unexpected expenses in the future. $3,000 may not be a significant amount based on our financial situation, but if it were $30,000 or more, neither of us could be expected to pay for it without facing significant hardship. We should have a plan in place for these situations. She did not want to put the cost on a credit card due to the high interest rates. If there was any delay in the surgery, it would be her fault. How is the interest my problem? She chose to take on occasional expenses while I covered the guaranteed ones. I do not think I am an idiot, but I do agree that this is the perfect time to review our agreement and discuss these matters. Perhaps we should put in writing that our child should have better insurance coverage, or that my ex should start contributing to a health account. You are the one at fault for not prioritizing your child's well-being over your animosity towards your ex. As a parent, your child's well-being should be your top priority, not getting back at your ex. You are not being a responsible parent. For the sake of your children, you two need to start acting like co-parents instead of squabbling toddlers. A nanny usually isn't an occasional expense and usually isn't cheap. Also, insurance and regular checkups aren't cheap either. This is because I was this kid once, and believe me, he knows about the squabbling. His dad said what he did and so on, and it's making him feel bad. Way to upset a kid who has to go through a scary procedure. OP, you're right about the money, but you must take a deep breath and lose the vitriol. There's no way it's not affecting your super cute son. Please don't put him through years of this. Disagree. Give an inch, she'll take a mile. They both knew she could pay with a credit card or a loan. She knew kids were expensive and needed medical appointments, so she should have always been saving for it. The lack of planning on her part is not OP's fault. Yup, everyone on here saying that you're the idiot is living in a dreamland. If you took their advice, your ex would stick you with everything. The bottom line is she figured it out and got it done. If you said he had never had the surgery, you would be the idiot. But sticking to your agreement and not wavering just because it's inconvenient for her is not bad. It's life. My late wife and I invested in a small winter cabin years ago. I am now the owner after her passing. My son, 22, is getting married to his soon-to-be wife in a month. They had no money for a destination honeymoon. They could barely plan the wedding. He asked if they could spend their honeymoon in my winter cabin, and I agreed, but under the condition that they pay me. He acted shocked and tried to argue that it was his mom's cabin too. But I pointed out how I am the owner now and that I pay to maintain it. He got upset and accused me of being materialistic and selfish after I had already been unhelpful with the wedding. I told him I did the same thing with his aunt, and it wasn't personal. He left with his fiancée and told the family about it. Now I'm being scolded left and right, told to let him use the cabin, and shamed for asking for money. Edit, I already gave their wedding gift, and told him 1,000,000 times that getting married so soon was not a good idea. But he refused my advice, and had no regard for my opinion on the situation. You are the idiot. It's your son, for his honeymoon. Are you going to charge your son? Honestly, when you never hear from him, rarely see him, and have no relationship with any potential future grandchildren, I want you to remember this moment. The moment when you typed all that out, and found nothing wrong with charging your son to use your family cabin. I wish you good luck, my friend, especially when you are much older, and may need help from your family. Life is long, and as they say, the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. If you genuinely want to resolve this, apologize to your son. Tell him how happy you would be to have him use your cabin, and that you know it would have made his mother happy to know that he would be beginning his married life there. It wasn't personal. It is entirely personal and based on the disapproval of the marriage. I would love to know why you won't let him stay at the cabin for your son who just got married. Do you not like him? Is your greed more important than your child? Did he ruin your plans? You pay to maintain the cabin, whether it's in use or not. You could have done a nice thing for your son that cost you nothing and still tried to stiff him. Oh boy, it sounds like a dad who will find a new wife and rewrite his will to leave everything to her and any future kids. He should just plan on never seeing any grandkids. Although it sounds like he wouldn't want to anyways. I hope he comes to regret everything when he's older. The fact that it's also my mom's cabin suggests that he's not a full father, more like a stepdad who hasn't fully embraced fatherhood in his own mind. He says son, but he really means my late wife's son. All the emotions make more sense to me that way. OP, if I were your late wife, seeing you treat my baby that way, I'd be rolling over in my grave and spending every minute haunting your butt. My wife, 39, and I, 41 male, have been married for 7 years. We have 2 kids of our own, a young child and a preschooler, and my wife has a daughter, Mary, from a previous relationship, who is now a teenager. My wife and her ex have split custody, and this year was supposed to be her ex's turn to have their daughter for Christmas. However, Mary has been having issues with her dad lately because she feels he's too strict. He's not, but that doesn't matter. He just has different rules for her when she's at his house, and Mary thinks that isn't fair. Since Mary was supposed to be with her dad for Christmas, we made plans to fly out of state to visit my family for the holidays. But last weekend, Mary was at her dad's, and they got into an argument. Mary returned to our house and told us that she didn't want to spend Christmas with her dad anymore. My wife immediately suggested that Mary could come with us instead, but it wasn't that simple. My wife and her ex have a clause in their custody agreement that requires the approval of both parents to take Mary over state lines. My wife specifically requested this clause at the time their agreement was made. We have asked for and received Mary's dad's approval for vacations, and vice versa. I reminded my wife of this and said that she would need to talk to her ex before we make any travel plans for Mary. She called her ex, and he said he still wants Mary to spend Christmas with him, and that he wants to try and talk to her to smooth things over. However, Mary says she doesn't want to talk to him at all. My wife explained this to her ex, and he said he wouldn't give permission to take Mary with us on our trip. He said he understands that Mary is mad at him, but he doesn't believe that it's fair that we take her with us for the holiday when it's supposed to be his time with Mary. His main point is that Mary spent the past 2 Christmases with us, last year because of their custody agreement, and the previous year because of COVID restrictions. Personally, I completely see his point. Mary is mad at him, but he still wants to work it out and spend the holidays with her. My wife thinks he's being vindictive and not looking out for Mary's best interest. My wife wants us to now change our plans and stay home instead of going to see my family. I told her I didn't want to do that. We've had these plans for months, and I'm looking forward to seeing my family for the holidays. It's been 3 years since we've spent Christmas with them. I suggested to my wife that we all sit down and talk about this and work something out so that our ex and Mary can spend the holiday together. But she got mad at me for taking his side instead of supporting her and Mary. Both my wife and Mary are now angry at me for not wanting to change our Christmas plans to accommodate Mary. Of course, I'm not expecting everyone to be happy about this situation. I'm just trying to find a compromise that brings us back to our original plans. Mary is mad at her dad because she feels his rules regarding her curfew and car use are unfair. Mary has a driver's license but no car of her own. When she's at her dad's, he only allows her to have one friend in the car with her at a time. He also has an 11 p.m. curfew for her on weekends. She stayed out until almost 1 a.m. the last time she was there, and they argued about it. Not the idiot. It sounds like your wife likes Mary being mad at her father because she jumped on telling Mary that she didn't need to abide by the custody agreements, instead of being willing to sit down with her ex and Mary and work something out. She's also refusing to even discuss options with you, and instead is demanding you give up seeing your family to do things her way. Please tell her that you and your kids will be keeping your original plans, since she isn't open to discussion or compromise, and she can stay home or go with you. Her choice. I just checked. The world does not revolve around Mary. It's her turn to spend Christmas with her dad. Her dad won't agree to a change in plans, which in my opinion is reasonable. Her dad has done nothing wrong, other than have a few rules that Mary doesn't like. And you and your wife have already made plans that don't include Mary. Mary can just suck it up, in my opinion. In 2 years, she can do what she wants. For context, my sister can stay here, but her dog cannot. I am a 29-year-old female with a 5-person household. My kids are between a younger tween and a young child. My husband is 31, and my sister is 19. She recently became homeless with her toddler son and dog. I am her only option at this point. Our parents are estranged and we have no other family to turn to. She asked if she could stay with me and has admitted that she has no plan for the foreseeable future. She is still figuring out how long she will need to stay. She only works part-time, so it is difficult for her to save money. I told her she and my nephew could stay with me, but the dog is not welcome in my home. I have several reasons for this. The main one is that I'm not a fan of dogs. Another reason is that I have cats, and my sister's dog has already attacked one of them last year. Additionally, I simply do not want the dog in my home. Space is not an issue, but I do not have the time, energy, or patience to take care of her animal. I am also not willing to pay for the dog's expenses, as I know my sister is already struggling financially. I have no problem helping to feed my sister and nephew, but I am not willing to pay for an extra mouth to feed. I did not directly tell her all of this, but she knows my stance on dogs, and that I believe she should not have gotten one in the first place, given her financial situation. She has had the dog for 2 years. All I said was that she and my nephew could stay with me for as long as they needed, but the dog could not. She immediately became upset and questioned why I would ask her to get rid of her son's pet. I explained that those are my conditions, and I did not have the energy to argue, considering I am already offering a lot. My sons will now have to share a room to accommodate my sister and nephew. She hung up after crying and accusing me of being heartless. Am I in the wrong? Edit. I suggested that she ask the child's grandparents to take the dog, but she is adamant about not separating her son from the dog. Are our pets beloved family members? Absolutely. Is my sister in a vulnerable situation and desperately trying to keep her family together? No doubt. Does that mean I should have to share my home with an animal that has already attacked one of my pets and will likely require me to cover its expenses? Absolutely not. I understand my sister's situation, but she can look into finding someone to foster the dog or giving it to a no-kill shelter. Her child is a toddler and will not remember the dog. My sister tried to use this as an emotional appeal, but it does not change the fact that teenagers are rarely responsible dog owners, especially in her current circumstances. I am doing both my sister and her dog a favor by not allowing it to stay with us. While beggars cannot be choosers, her son and dog can stay together at either his grandparents' house or a shelter. She needs to find a solution that does not involve me. She needs to get her priorities straight and make compromises. The lack of gratitude on her part for your support for the foreseeable future is astounding. It sounds like she has a lot of growing up to do. I have 3 kids. My husband and I worked hard to raise them and help them become productive adults. And they have. I'm proud of all 3. They were great kids and have become successful adults, if I do say so myself. When my oldest daughter married a widower who already had a toddler, my husband and I put money into an education fund. We did the same for every biological grandchild. We know a little bit about investing in compound interest. By starting early, we can invest a little bit each month. And by the time they graduate high school, we'll be able to provide each one with enough money for a good start in life. For example, my oldest grandchild just graduated from high school. We were able to let them know that after scholarships and everything was taken into account, they would be graduating debt-free. We don't give any of them the money. We pay for tuition, fees, and other expenses. We learned our lesson from our youngest, our only son. We gave him the money we had saved for his 2 older sisters. He also had scholarships, but he spent the money we gave him and chose to become a tradesperson instead. He is now successful and owns his own business. He was previously married, but it didn't work out. We have 2 grandchildren from that marriage. Last year, he married a very nice woman with a teenage son. She had him at a young age, which caused a rift in her family. Unfortunately, none of them came to the wedding. My son approached us about helping with his stepson's education expenses. After discussing it, my husband and I agreed to give him $5,000 to assist, but that was all we could afford. My son is disappointed, but he knows that all of our other grandchildren have enough money in their accounts to cover at least 2.5 years of in-state tuition and expenses. He makes good money, but he also enjoys spending it on toys and vacations. I don't believe that he or my daughter-in-law have saved anything for their stepson's education. That's why we offered $5,000. My son and his wife are planning ahead for when he graduates in June, and they're still upset that I'm treating him differently from our other grandchildren. I understand that we are, but we didn't have almost 2 decades to save for him. That $5,000 came out of my savings for when I needed to replace my car. You are not at fault. You didn't have a lengthy head start to save for this grandchild like you did for the others. He can be upset that his child won't have the same head start, but he can't be angry at you for not being able to offer more. Now it's up to him to provide. How were you supposed to know that he would marry someone with a child who was almost finished with school? Was he expecting a secret college fund that you were saving in case of a last-minute teenage grandchild appeared? I don't think your son has realistic expectations for this last-minute situation. College funds are saved for years, to amounts actually needed. It sounds like you are still trying to offer what you could manage. Try and sit down with your son and explain again after he's calmed down. Hey mom, here's a new teen grandson for you to give me money. What the? Your son can't be serious. He's acting like an entitled brat with no knowledge of economics, fairness, or appreciation. This is not about biological or bonus children. To me, it screams pure entitlement and possibly some messed up sibling rivalry from his side. Update, I've talked to my husband and son. My son wants me to take money from all the accounts and make one for his stepson. We counter-offered to split the 2 accounts we have for his biological children into 3, and split the $5,000 between them, and we will continue to contribute to the accounts until they are used. He seems unhappy with that option.